you. And so I'm going to start introducing and inviting our guest speakers, people from different five churches. So first I'll request Jacquelyn Jones. Is she here? Yes, right here. So she is a member of the Baha'i faith and the secretary for the Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Augusta, the administrative body of the local Baha'i community. She is a retired university administrator from the Medical University of South Carolina, and she does a lot of interfaith activities here, promoting the awareness about Baha'i prayer. And we have had the privilege of her visiting the meditation center. She has such lovely energy that we had a great time with her when she had visited. I think it was more than a year back, I guess, when you visited. Yes, but that's perfectly fine. All right, we are glad to have you here today. And next is Azza, El-Remessy. She's a native of Egypt. She's a pharmacist and a PhD in biochemistry. Came to the US in 1996 to study at the Medical College of Georgia. And she currently is a pharmacist at the Doctor's Hospital. And in the past 20 years, she has been very active at the Islamic Society of Augusta as a Sunday school teacher and other interfaith programs, as well as the CSRA Women Interfaith Network. Next, we have Cheikh Sufi. Cheikh, is that how it's pronounced right? Yes, we had the fortune of spending time with him when he had visited the meditation center again probably last year, and we had a good time. Lovely energy that he brings with him. So he is an initiator of more than one Sufi order and the system of self-realization. He is the first representative of his master, Sarikni Selo Bakke. In the West. He has published more than 11 books, and I guess more are in the pipeline. He's a founder of the Cheikh, help me out, Ermado, Bamba Sufi School in the West. So let's welcome him. Who am I missing? Yes, Naomi. Yes, 1 second. I think I deleted. No, the accidentally got deleted. I never did. It might have gotten deleted here. Just give me a moment. Let me go into the email that she sent me. Sorry, Naomi. Pardon me.
That's what, it was last minute, so no problem.
No, still, I should have taken care of it. Naomi, I honestly can't find it now.
That's all right.
So I'll let Naomi.
Yes.
All right, describe about yes.
Thank you. My name is Naomi Frost-Hewitt, and I'm here as a Unitarian Universalist. And I discovered my faith on a journey that leads me as a Unitarian Universalist to honor all the journeys that we're on. Because none of us ever has a closing to the seeking for meaning and the energy of love and the belongingness and belovedness of community. And the other thing that I can say about myself is I've been through, I had many different beliefs, and Unitarian Universalism offers me a place to honor all of them. And the other thing that may be of note, especially given that we're talking of rootedness in India for this particular meditation movement, is that Ralph Waldo Emerson was my great uncle. And some of you may know, recognize his name. He's gone. But he was a transcendentalist, and the transcendental movement that gave rise to much openness of thought in the United States was rooted in the discovery of the Hindu texts. the translation of them that happened in the 1800s. So I feel like I'm coming full circle, and I'm delighted to be here.
We met Naomi when actually they had invited us to me and Kanishka to the Universalist, Unitarian Universalist Church. It was a great experience, and I enjoyed listening to that kid story that you had, that you were sharing. It was such a pleasure. I knew I was looking forward to having you here, and finally that dream evolved. It happened today. So great. We're so happy to have you. And then we have Sister Mary, last but not least. Sister Mary from the Brahma Kumaris Center in Chicago. So I had not introduced her earlier, but now we're going to introduce her. She was an educator for a long, long time. Earlier, I think her roots are from Chicago, moved to California for quite a while, where she was with the meditation center in San Francisco. She also is a physical yoga, hatha yoga instructor, but now she's completely dedicated to the services of Brahma Kumaris in Chicago. And I can say that I have learned a lot. When we were living in Michigan, we used to be very connected with Sister Mary, me and Kanishka, and a lot of what we are speaking and doing and whatever we have learned from her. She is exceptional, the way she conducts workshops and spiritual sustenance that she gives to so many people. For those of you who had come yesterday for the event, for the talk, at the workshop, I'm sure you enjoyed it, and several people actually very texted me yesterday. It was a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to listen to her. So thank you very much, Sister Mary. And then our moderator for this panel discussion is Gemini. Gemini is a chartered accountant. She has come from Atlanta. She's been with the Brahma Kumaris meditation faith for 20 years. She's young, but you see, 20 years. So she brings with her a lot of lovely energy. She comes here very often with her mom, who helps with cooking food and things like that. And they both of them, when they come, it's just a lot of fun, a lot of joy to have them. So now she's going to take this forward. So enjoy. This is going to go for about an hour or so, and then we will have a little more ceremony, sort of, where we will give you a blessing card, a sweet, and there will be gifts for our speakers, the panelists, as well as the performers. So please, if you can stay back just for a minute or so longer than 2 o'clock, it would be appreciated. Thank you very much, and let's give Gemini a big hand. So is it possible if you could make this into a half view circle and each one can see each other? Because otherwise you all won't be able to see each other.
Yeah. Okay, so as you all know, today's topic is to do with interfaith, and specifically dignity and in diversity. And those are both very big words. So I'd like to maybe start off with getting a feel for your understanding of what is dignity and what is dignity in diversity. And probably what we could do is have, how would you explain to me how you feel about dignity and diversity? So should we start with Azza?
I think I'm loud enough. Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay, well, thank you very much first, for having me. And I am not a scholar. I am an average Muslim girl, so I want to just clarify that, because it's, I don't want to be in a position that I'm not, I cannot fill that position. So I'm born Muslim. My family, I'm originally from Egypt, so I grew up, Muslim. I moved to the state 22 years ago, and not only to the state, to Augusta. I think I've been here maybe longer than some other people who were born here. And I can just tell you briefly that I really think that living in the state improved my understanding as a Muslim, and I feel like I became a better Muslim, continuing to live here. So that's, I want to just go ahead and start, with that. My 2 cents on that big question
Yes.
is, as Muslim, we believe in one God. So that the oneness of God is what really gives us our dignity, because we are only slaves for that God. We are servants for that God, and we are obeying that God. That also gives us the equality, because He explained to us in the Holy Book, which is the Quran, in case of other people didn't know, that we are all equal. So He created all the creature equally. It doesn't really matter your skin color, your race, your height, so all of us, we are equal, and then because we all serve Him, and serve Him by serving each other and helping each other. For the diversity, I think I kind of, it's, in a way we see that everybody is equal and everybody had the same right. So if he meant to create only one shape, one type, even one belief, He could. But He created us differently, for others.
Thank you. Thank you, Azza. That was really beautiful. It is truly a rare experience living in Georgia, to find someone in Georgia living in Georgia for that long, or in Augusta. Yes, exactly. So that was a fun fact to know, and your understanding of dignity and diversity, bringing about that quality of equanimity, and following one highest God. Thank you for that understanding. So maybe we can hear from Jacquelyn on your understanding of what it means to have dignity in diversity.
My name is Jackie Jones, and as you heard in the introduction, I'm a member of the Baha'i Faith. I'm a member of the Baha'i Faith by personal declaration. And what I mean by that, the Baha'i Faith, you're not born a Baha'i. It's about your relationship with God, and so you make that decision yourself. You can be raised in a Baha'i home, but again, it must be your decision based on your understanding and based on your relationship you establish with God. So that being said, what attracted me to the Baha'i Faith is part of the reason why I'm here today. Is also too what I did and try to do every single morning. I grew up in an all-black church, African Methodist Episcopal Church. I understood as a child the reason why that happened. It happened because back in the 1800s, when freed Africans or enslaved Africans went to a church to worship, they were denied the opportunity to be at the altar. Therefore, black churches were started. But then I'm 17, I'm 18 years old. And the only time I see diversity within my church was during the time when politicians were running for office. There was something wrong with that picture. Because if Jesus came for all mankind, and knowing and believing, growing up my parents knowing and believing that God was the creator of all of us, then how can we possibly achieve the goals of our faith, just bringing about the oneness and unity of humanity, if we're divided by something superficial as race? And so my search began. And I ended up with embracing the Baha'i faith because just as in Islam and in Christianity and other faiths, we believe in the oneness of God. But if you accept the oneness of God and one creator, then you have to accept the oneness of humanity. Now that can be a struggle sometimes, okay? It doesn't come automatically because we live in a world that doesn't always reflect that. But if that is your core belief, then you have to reflect it back. So when I talk about dignity, it is acknowledging first and foremost the oneness of mankind. The first and foremost thing. I could have been born in Saudi Arabia. I just happened to be born in Atlanta, Georgia. I could have been born to parents whose names were Hassan, but I was born to Joseph. And so, which is a pretty cool name, think about it, whether you're looking at the Quran or biblically. But either way, God's decision was that you are you and me, I'm me. But with that decision, though, becomes the fact is that he only cares about our thoughts, our hearts, our spirits, and not about the color of our skin. So, dignity is understanding that within myself, but also reflecting that onto others as well. And embracing the wonders and the amazing things about diversity. I don't want everybody thinking and looking like me. What's in that? The best that we have to offer to our families, to our communities, to our faith communities, to our country is our diversity. Don't anyone rob that from us.
Thank you so much, Jackie. So there were two interesting points that you brought up. One was that it was a personal choice for you at a young age to correct the picture that you were seeing. And then the second aspect was, again, the oneness, which is starting the theme so far, based on what I've heard from Azza. So we'll come back to your personal experience, but I think let's just carry on with our personal understanding of what it means to have dignity and diversity.
Peace and blessings to everyone here. Dignity and diversity are very great concepts. But from the Buddhist point of view, all concepts are empty. The reality is La ilaha illallah. From an esoteric point, it means God is the only reality. So I don't see a difference between you and me. From the Sufi perspective, everything is gradations of light. Nur ala nur, light upon light. And in the beginning of the journey, there's something called shariat. And in the shariat, you are you and I am me. There's a difference on the outer level between all of us. Allah says in the Quran, we created you in nations and tribes so that you might know each other. So we were created in different nations and tribes, but it's only so that we might come to know each other. So in the beginning of the journey, I am me and you are you. That's shariat. When you get to Tartikat, the second level of realization, you'll find, no, you are me and I am you. Me and you are one. And then when you get to the highest level, you say, wait, me and you don't exist, only God exists. God, the light of the universe, is a transcendental being. And this light shines through a prism called the cosmos. And the cosmos manifests different rays as if it was a light shining through a diamond. And you know how a prism creates 7 rays? That's how humanity is. We all came from the same light, but it looked like different manifestations. But the word universe starts with uni, meaning one. So I don't see any others. I see reflections of God in all these beautiful faces. And that gives everyone dignity.
All right, Naomi, we'll just carry on with your definition of dignity.
Well, Unitarian Universalism doesn't have a dogma. So in our beloved community, there will be people who will say that they don't believe in a God, and they're accepted. There are people who have doubts about what kind of divinity there might be. There are others who are Christian or Buddhist or whatever. Our goal is to create community bond. But we are united in principles that we agree upon. And the very first of the 7 principles is the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Each of us has worth, each of us has dignity. Now, some of us may throw that away from time to time, but we can remind each other to bring it back. And then in diversity, I'm reminded of our 7th principle, which honors the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, even beyond humanity. The stardust that is a part of us and flows through us,
the other living beings, the things which can become living stones, dirt, earth, fungi, the whole thing. We're all in this together. And whatever one of us does flows out, as someone said earlier, as ripples touching other things. So we are not separate. We are not separate. And in community, we call each other back to that inherent worth and dignity and inseparability.
Thank you so much. And finally, Sister Mary, if you can shed some thoughts on dignity and diversity.
Thank you. In the Brahma Kumaris, we see dignity as a quality of the soul. The eternal soul, which is within each human being. Dignity we see as an intrinsic quality, which, as my colleague Naomi said, we might not recognize, we might forget about it, but it's always there. We were designed with dignity. And diversity is a quality of nature, a principle of nature, really. Diversity is a principle of nature. So just as there are many different kinds of trees, and there are many different kinds of flowers, although human souls all have, in addition to dignity, the qualities of peace, love, joy, purity, and truth, we all have our own special blend of those qualities. So diversity is natural. That's all I can say. It's natural. Like day and night are natural. And like we love nature. We go to see deserts if we live in the Greenland, and we go to mountains. It's like me, you live in Chicago that's flat. We love diversity. And I think there's been a great movement among humanity in the last 100 years because we all are living next door to, if not in the same house, with people who came from very different backgrounds. We all are in our own ways embracing diversity. And so the challenge now at this time when diversity is both a dividing point and a call for togetherness, I feel the challenge is to look within myself and see where I draw the line. So maybe I love people of all religions, I love people of all cultures, but complainers annoy me. And so I have to, again, look at the diversity. There's a bell-shaped curve for everything. And really address the points within myself where I close myself up to diversity.
Okay, thank you. So, on a very practical level, at least for me, I'm going to paint a scenario where I'm that 17 or 18-year-old and vulnerable to seeing and hearing all the information that is available, and hearing from my friend circle different ways of living, different methods of praying, different forms of gods even, and different practices that they come from. In that moment, what would help me maintain my dignity, my self-respect, and yet embrace my friends without being, or without questioning who I am, or opening myself up to questioning who I am and what I stand for. So I think maybe if we can start off with Jackie, because it seems like you started off in that situation, and then please feel free, the others, if you want to just add to that experience or that question.
As a big good girl. Okay, I'll go back. That's a ways back than my 17-year-old self. Right? Years ago. Yeah, right. It's a ways back. Yeah. But it was, I think, because one was how I was raised, in terms of, even without even being named, the oneness of humanity, the oneness of mankind, or
putting diversity on that. It was being raised with the belief that all are from the same source and the same being. And wanting to be part of and looking for where that could exist within, especially within my faith community. And not that they're, still, you're all in church as I was. You're still learning about faith teachings. It's just that you're not seeing those teachings within your worship. And so then it becomes really easy to talk about stuff and oneness if you're not challenged by it. And also too, along with the obvious diversity of race and ethnicity, is also too though, I was coming along at a time, and I was in Boston, and this accounts for something, that I was coming along at a time when the Black Muslim movement was having an important and major effect on Black males. And I say that with honor because they were finding within that faith community a validation that they couldn't find others. And so I start looking at then what's going on in other faith communities that I want to understand more and recognize as being not unique, but being the same thing that existed within my own. So I needed to open myself up. So yes, I looked at Buddhism, I looked at Islam, I looked at a lot of stuff. But also too, so I had, the way I was raised was made that possible. So I wasn't losing me, I was expanding me. And in expanding me, I was going to be able to, as I have and continue for the last 4 years then, to be able to have awesome experiences of joining with people as we not only pursue enhancing our own sense of oneness with one another, but as we're able to reach out and bring others into this ever-widening circle. I hope that makes sense.
Sure, thank you. Maybe a simple question will be, how do you know where you will fit in?
Can I respond to this one?
Sure.
I'm a fan of bumper stickers. Do y'all? And we select them, those of us who have old enough cars to put bumper stickers on, to tell the world a message. Well, once upon a time I found a bumper sticker that I loved and it brought it off my car, and I haven't found one that's as visually effective since then. And the bumper sticker was this: God is too big to fit inside one religion. Yes. Amen. Right. Okay, so each person in diversity is looking for a meaning and connection. We find community. Sometimes that shapes how then our search continues. But what we're talking about is before words, yes? What we're talking about in the fullness of divinity is too large for words or for individual minds. In community, we can help each other feel it. But for myself, when I melt away and I feel a part of all that is, and I would call that divinity flowing through me, there are no words, right? And so, and I'm a lover of words, so sometimes it's hard for me to be humble about that. But it seems to me that the virtue of humility, the way of ignorance, of knowing that I don't know everything, and the people who taught me don't know everything, and there's still room to learn and grow, it seems to me that that helps in almost every situation. And that part of my dignity is admitting I don't know it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for letting me speak.
No, this is a conversation, so jump in as needed. Did anyone want to add to? Yeah.
So speaking from the old world of the culture, so I always joke I used to teach in the University of Georgia, so I used to joke with the students that the American culture is really, very interesting and very accepting culture. I'm an evidence of that. And then if you look around you, you'll see, the different faces coming from the old world culture. So I grew up in Egypt. I see faces from India, from Europe, right? When you grow up anywhere in the old world culture, you are one of so many of the same people. So growing up in Egypt, we are all Egyptian. We all eat the same food. We even fight among each other, who's from north and who's from south, and who's fair and who's dark, and that's it. I was really surprised coming here and having, in the same class, I have people from China, people from India, people from Romania, right? Exactly the same culture. So I realized that, okay, it's an old world culture where we have many people of the same versus the new world culture. So going back to the, I'm going back to that, about the personal choice. I think faith, or finding where your soul really kind of rests and your mind rests, feeling like, okay, I'm on track, I think I'm holding into something really good, is a personal journey. So there are already, so I was born, Muslim. I came here, I was a graduate student, I was by myself, and I got invited to be Christian 3 million times. I got invited to be free, because people think that because I'm covered, oh, I'm a slave, I'm a poor girl, I'm not smart, you name it, So I got invited to be freed and to be educated 3 million times, And so if it was that it's really enforcing, then I should have got the opportunity. I should use, 22 years being here away from the family to take, a different path. But really the faith, so it's a choice that you make by visiting and by getting to know. So it's a real advantage for people who live here, that you're not you don't have to stick to the same thing that your family grew up with, or your neighbors, and all of that stigma, but to explore different things and find and stick to the thing that suit you. The other thing that we believe also, that faith is alive. So my faith and believe in God and how I deal with everyday thing might get weakened, might get strong, might so it grow and it shrink. If I didn't continue to nurture it, it will shrink, and and so forth. So that's it's not only one form. It's not only by personal choice. It's not only by birth. It's not only, it comes in different shapes and forces. But you have to keep looking and nurturing it. Otherwise, it will just die somewhere.
It's actually a unique concept that you've highlighted there, that faith is internal, and you've got to explore the avenues that keep that flame of faith ignited. So if I was in that exploration phase and born of a certain faith and have all the sustenance I could possibly want geared towards that specific faith, how would you advise me, or how does your faith advise a person like me on seeking out what's right for me?
I once saw the Dalai Lama answer a question in a speech, and someone asked the Dalai Lama, there was a Christian person who asked the Dalai Lama, should I become a Buddhist? And the Dalai Lama said, if what you have is working, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Yeah. The Dalai Lama told him, if Christianity is working for you, keep it. If Islam is working for you, keep it. If the Baha'i faith is working for you, keep it. If Judaism is working for you, keep it. But if it's not working for you, then try something else. So the beauty of self-realization is that you find that the garden has many different flowers, and it's the diversity of the colors of the flowers that make the garden beautiful. Whereas if you just had a garden with all purple flowers, oh, that's nice. You have a garden with all red roses, oh, that's nice. But if you see a mixture of red roses, yellow tulips, white lilies, all in one garden, wow, that's very beautiful. So, in essence, it's the diversity of all of creation that makes it more beautiful. And these trees are beautiful now, but in the fall, when the leaves start changing colors, why do we say, oh, nobody says, I'm going to drive out to the countryside in the summer and look at the leaves. Who does that? You're like, are you on drugs? What's going on? But in the fall, when the leaves change colors, people want to go in the countryside and say, oh, the leaves are so beautiful. So we can take that example into our daily lives and realize that everything, because of diversity, is more beautiful.
Thank you.
In the Brahma Kumaris, we have to believe that every soul is individual and every soul has its own destiny. And so, and we are all, you could say, on a path. Whether we think about it or not, we're on a path. And as souls, the path is a spiritual path. And so some of us seek and we find what we're looking for. Some of us just seek, and some of us aren't seeking, but we still find something. And it's part of the diversity of nature. And I feel the most important ingredient is to have a true heart. To be open to possibilities that I never imagined would open up for me. To also be open to the possibility that what I've been doing all of my life is actually the best for me. But to have this, and I like that quality of humility as well, this humility to understand that my destiny is bigger than I think of myself. And if I have a true heart, if I'm honest, if I love goodness, whatever that means to me, or God, whatever that means to me, then definitely it's simply a principle of nature that I'm going to find what it is that I need in order to be the best that I can. Thank you.
Did you want to?
Jackie, I remember being said, if you had to do it again, would you? It's so hard. I remember having this radar for hypocrisy. Like if grown-ups weren't walking the talk, I was tempted to throw that out, or whatever. And so there was a curious combination of unknowing and that radar for hypocrisy. And so that's a precious gift, and I think that often we don't listen as well to those young seekers in our communities. Often, I know that I'm a great-grandmother, right? So often I want to give people prepackaged ideas because I know it, I lived it. Just listen to me, it'll all be okay. But we live in the world changes and it grows, and new solutions can evolve. And I'm thinking also that that in addition, well, part of growing soul for me is learning to love more people more better and to honor their inherent dignity. So in my own faith community, if I may, one of the challenges that our faith community has taken up, and I believe others will in time, has been actively seeking to understand and welcome and learn from our gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, and questioning neighbors. And because there are things that folks who have that journey know about being human that I don't know because I don't have that journey. And that's a part of making a whole out of the community. And I think sometimes there are old rules that came from culture and not from the religion itself that have infected the way people are taught to see other people. And that those who are here gathered have, just like this pavilion, open walls even though we're in the shade, and that we can be open to learning from people who are different and welcoming what we learn about ourselves from that encounter, and the love that happens.
Thank you. So, just stepping away from the surface now, I think we've all embraced the fact that having multicultures, different skin color, different ways of eating, different ways of living are all things that we can basically come to terms with at this point, I feel. There's an acceptance for this. So there's a common ground that when I feel pain, it doesn't matter what my skin color is at that point. It's a universal feeling. Just as there's been a few virtues thrown out, humility, love, openness. So let's step into that direction and speak from that perspective. How do I get past looking at the labels and then going into the inner world? So how do I work towards not even seeing the outer?
Yeah. When people say to me that they don't see race or differences, that disturbs me. And I don't believe them, but also, but more importantly, but more importantly, so what? It is what you think about it and what you do with it that's much more, in my opinion, that's much more important. And so that does concern me. I want to see it only because I want to better understand your challenges and your pain. Because if I say I don't see it, then I'm not acknowledging the fact that your life may have struggles that are common to mine, and we can talk about them in support. Or I'm not recognizing the fact that you have struggles at all. And I'm thinking, yeah, your life must be hunky-dory. So I don't want not to see it. I want to understand it, and I want to find our commonality. Because that's how you build a sense of community. I don't think you build it on being blind, but you build it, I think, into trying to understand and figuring out what are your challenges and how you can heal yourself from looking at people's differences as being less than or more than. And so that's just my thought on that.
So when you were talking about this, what came to my mind really, that where is actually the fruit of the faith? So people can really embrace different faith, right? And when we even get to know, as I said, being here in the new world, and we learn to accept and live with the other, no matter what with the other, right? But the reality, when we know that, when somebody knows that I'm Muslim, they say, oh, you do Ramadan, oh, right? So these are the kind of like the do's and don'ts, As a Christian, you go to the church on Sunday, and I'm not expert, but by any chance. As a Buddhist, this is what you do, right? So kind of like that's to me the outer part, the regulation of, as a Buddhist, this is what you do, as a Muslim, this is what you do, as a whatever you do, that's what you do. But the reality, when everyone in that different faith, in the faith that you decided to embrace, if you really embrace it and it internalized into you, it should really come out as the fruit of action of that faith. So as a Muslim, yeah, away from Muslim has to, the ladies has to cover and the men have to grow their beard, because people are so attached to the appearances. As a Muslim, I shouldn't really sleep knowing that my neighbor is hungry. And we follow the tradition and the saying of, Prophet Muhammad. He did not say your Muslim neighbor. He did not say that. He said, you cannot be truly Muslim. You're not really going to be truly believer if your neighbor is, sleeping, that he's asleep hungry. And there is like 3 million, hadith and evidence about caring for your own family, that's kind of your small society, and then your neighborhood, and then you can imagine if all of us, like sometimes I feel like I'm not really good Muslim in that sense. I didn't even know the names of my neighbors. Or I know one of them, But I mean, like we live now, okay, you live in a house and you're affluent and you're doing good, and so you really don't have to worry about whether they have food for the dinner or not. But I'm just saying this as an example. So I think when we, faith, if we really claim that we embrace faith and we practice, if that did not really internalize into actions, I think that the reason we see in this world the lack of peace, because we embrace faith, but we stick to it as appearance and regulation and, we need to do this, we need to do that. But we did not really care for the other human being, because that's ABC.
Sure. Thank you.
There is a great Sufi Cheikh from Sri Lanka named Baha'i Mahayadin. And Baha'i Mahayadin says, separate from yourself that which separates you from others. Separate from yourself that which separates you from others. This is my normal dress. I go to Walmart, people say, oh, what's your religion? And so I say, what's your religion? If they say, I'm Christian, I say, hallelujah. If they say I'm Buddhist, I say, Om Mani Padme Hum. If they say I'm Hindu, I say, Om Namah Shivaya. And if they say, oh, I'm Jewish, I say, Shalom. And if they're Muslim, I say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. So from this point, I'm friends with everybody. And there's a Hindu philosopher named Sri Sankara, and he is a proponent of something called non-dual Advaita. And Sankara, they have an aphorism where they look at the commonality and not the differences or the diversity. And in one of the books, they gave a beautiful example. They said, oh, she's wearing a necklace. She's wearing a ring. He's wearing a bracelet. It looks different, but they're all made of gold. So you can say, oh, she's wearing gold, he's wearing gold, I'm wearing gold. Or you can say she has a bracelet, she has a watch, he has a ring. In the West, we're taught to look at differences. I'm black, I'm white, I'm gay, I'm straight. Hey, who cares? Be what you want to be, just be happy. But in Eastern philosophy, they have a concept of non-duality called Advaita. And it's a very beautiful concept because I don't see the differences. And then in Islam, we have a concept called Tawheed. And Tawheed is the oneness of God. And if God is one, then all of the creations are one. In the Quran, it says if there were two gods, they would be arguing over the sun. I want the sun to come up now. No, I want the sun to come up now. No, I want the moon to come up. No, I want the sun. So there has to be one God, but we call this God by many names. And if we can see the unity in God, we can see the unity in all of the creations, perhaps.
You had asked about pain.
Yes.
And I was reminded of a personal experience that I had been singing meditation saved my life. And it was a singing meditation based on Itikahan. I went through a period in my life where my conception was I was worth more dead than alive. I had an insurance policy. I was in the brink of bankruptcy. It had been going on for a long time. Everything seemed to be going wrong.
It happened to you too?
Yeah. Yes, so you could call it dark night of soul, you can call it, I was suicidal. But I had gone to, and many times, sometimes in different layers, but if we don't learn something once, we just go back and have to try to learn it again. So I had attended a workshop on singing meditation. And the idea with singing meditation is if I sing a simple song 4 or 5 or 6 times,
and hold silence. All that's in me is the words of that song, right? So it's a way to meditate where if my mind is really busy, I can slow my mind down and have it hook on to that. And so the meditation, I woke up in the middle of the night realizing I was singing this silently to myself. And it got me through again 5 times. And still to this day, when I feel lost or discouraged or so worried that I'm paralyzed, I come back to this. And I'm sure it's a paraphrase of the Mahan, but it is in breath, out breath, deep breath, slow breath, calm breath, ease breath, smile and release breath, present moment, wonderful. So it goes from the physicality of breath, and we can envision the movement in and out of spirit if we wish, or love and peace. And it goes to being happy, but in a way, smile. And look at this moment, it's all we have. And so in terms of pain, I bet there are resources, like walking through the valley of death in Christianity, and others, and Judaism, so that there are probably resources that are used in times of great pain. And I'd be interested in hearing more of those.
Before we dive down that road, or what I'd like to ask or explore is, there's been a concept of an experience or a direction to go as opposed to this is the way. And also you mentioned that there's a oneness, there has to be a oneness to God in order for us to maintain some form of unity. So, Sister Mary, if I can just force you to talk about the oneness, how do I assure myself or begin to experience that of God?
I think it starts with there's 2 things that have to go together, not the one starts. But I have to experience oneness within myself, which means I have to know who I am. Am I a female? Am I a meditation teacher? Am I a senior citizen? I didn't used to be a senior citizen. I didn't used to be a meditation teacher, so that must not be who I am. This is the first thing, is who am I? And we have to really clock the hours of internal investigation to understand myself as an eternal spiritual being. And I happen to have one costume and you've got a different costume, and we have to have a costume to play on this stage. That's just the rule of the game. So the first thing is I have to have an understanding of my own oneness, and then I can understand one God. Because if I'm a spiritual being and God is a spiritual being, we have to have the same qualities, which means the oneness of God means God is peace, but I'm not always peaceful. But there is this being who is. That's where the faith comes in. There is one being who is eternally peaceful, and one being who always loves, who doesn't judge, who doesn't criticize, and there's one being who likes everything. And there's one being who knows everything. And so this is the oneness of God. But we, and starting with myself, I have a little piece of the puzzle, but I still have a lot of false ideas in my head, coming from this limited consciousness of when I used to think I'm college educated, I come from the Midwest, all of these kind of things. I still carry that around, and I remember when I started being involved in interfaith work with the Brahma Kumaris in San Francisco, the director of our center, Sister Chandra, explained interfaith to me. She said, I believe that my religion is the best, and I respect that everyone else believes their religion is the best. And that stayed with me, and I went to my first meeting, and I'm so wise. And my first meeting, there was another man who joined the same time I did, and he was a Wiccan. Now, I grew up in the Midwest as a Christian, and I learned that pagans are less than Christians. And so this Midwestern Christian girl came out when I looked at him, and I said, this San Francisco business is going a little too far. A Wiccan on an interfaith. Well, I remembered what Sister Chandra told me. I got to be really good friends with this brother, and he became a role model for me. And what he did was, and he's such a gregarious guy, he started a Friday night dinner group of Wiccans and evangelical Christians. They got together once a month, they had dinner, they talked about everything, and they became friends. And he said, my Christian friends, he said, they still think I'm going to burn in hell, but they think I'm a really nice guy, and they will not miss Friday dinner with me. And so, this is what it is that this one God, you know, we all have a vision of this one being, and we're all trying to go from this kind of my own limited understanding into this unlimited experience of, like we say, just be it. When we put it into words, then we start putting limits on it. Thank you.
I want to say a few words about the power of food. My Cheikh Ahmad is a Sufi master from West Africa. He has the whole Quran memorized, thousands of hadiths. But they asked my Cheikh, is there anything better than Islam? And the Cheikh said the only thing better than Islam is feeding people. He said if someone is hungry, they cannot hear your Islam. And Islam means peace. And then if you give them some food, they might be able to hear your philosophy. And in one of the books I read, it said, to a homeless man, food is God. To a homeless person, food is God. So I don't necessarily give a homeless man the Holy Quran. I will give him some food first, and then maybe we could talk. And then there was another Sufi master named Cheikh Ibrahim. Cheikh Ibrahim is another Sufi master from West Africa. And one of the disciples, you know, in Islam we have 5 prayers, fast in Ramadan, read the Quran, go to Mecca, give the zakat, the 5 pillars. And one disciple came to the Cheikh and said, Cheikh, I don't make my 5 prayers, but I want to be a saint. He said, Cheikh, I don't really fast in Ramadan, but I want to be a saint. He said, Cheikh, you know, I don't have much money, so I don't have a chance to go to Mecca, but I want to be a saint. He asked the Cheikh, what can I do in my condition to be a saint, like the saints in previous time period? And the Cheikh said, that's easy. In this century, the fastest way to be a saint is to just cook food and give it away. He said, if you can just cook food and give it to people regardless of their religion, in this time period, that will make you a big wali Allah, a big saint. So the food is, and they have a saying in Africa, which is dub and dubby. Dub and dubby is an African proverb. A dub is I lived in Africa for two years. Has anybody been to Africa?
I lived for 2 years.
2 years. We're in the same family. So I was in West Africa. In West Africa, they have these big pots. You could put 10 whole chickens in one pot. And that pot is called a dub. And dubby means to be in front. So the phrase dub and dubby means if you put the food in a big pot and give it to the people, you will be Debbie in front of everyone. So cooking food and giving it away is, at this time period, is a way to become a saint.
I have no idea what the time is and how we're doing, so can I have a Okay, so we'll wrap it up. I think what might be a good takeaway is if maybe each of you could share one value that touched you most and you feel is the key to teaching somebody or taking that experience of dignity with them. Yeah?
Well, again, I just want to thank you. I mean, I've never been in this kind of open dialogue. I really love it. And I usually start with this, but it's going to be this time to conclude with it, yeah. So Islam is an Arabic word, and it has two different roots. One meaning would be submission, and the other meaning is peace. So, that really goes perfectly with the peace, in the Quran. And the deeper philosophy behind it, and I'm sure you can shed more light on that, is you find your peace in submission to Him. So that's, sometimes, when we teach kids or, they say, oh, that's a contradiction, and, it's absolutely lead to each other. In your submission, that's where you're going to find your inner peace, and hopefully distribute and sort of export that peace, to other people.
I missed part of your question because I was whispering something here. And the Baha'i faith, we pray at least 3 to 5 times a day. And one of the prayers that we can choose to say, and I say it quite often, not because it's the shortest one, y'all, but because it helps to remind me during the middle of the day to make sure I'm on course. And briefly, the prayer says, I bear witness, O my God, that thou hast created me to know thee and to worship thee. I testify this moment to my powerlessness and to thy might, to my poverty and to thy wealth. Now, we worship God, or our concept of God, in many different ways. You may light candles, you may say very long prayers, you may meditate. It's all of that, but also service. We're instruments. We're instruments of peace. We're instruments of love. We're instruments of kindness. That's what we do. And so therefore, it is in part of Baha'i belief that we make sure during the day, and certainly at the end of the day, we take account of our day. How have I served my Lord by serving others? And the other thing in terms of this issue about dignity and divinity, and diversity rather, it is being an instrument to help others tap hold of their dignity. It's within all of us. God created that within all of us. The virtues that reflect the oneness of the Creator are within all of us. But there are times that those of us who know that, we forget. But there's too many that don't realize that dignity is about understanding your worth, your value, understanding that there's a Creator that loves you more than anything, always has your back, always there for you. And so that's something that we can bring and give and share to help others to find and realize and explore those virtues within themselves, and there contribute to the betterment of our neighborhoods, our families, our schools, our society, and service. Thank you.
I have in mind the words of a past president of our Unitarian Universalist Association, a gentleman who went on to head Amnesty International and served in many other ways, Dr. Schultz. And he writes in a piece of writing, this is the mission of our faith, and he mentions several things: to honor our hearts and a curious mind and so forth. And then he says, to practice the fragile art of hospitality, and to remember that we must hold the whole world in our hands.
I think he speaks for all of us.
For me, the quality is honoring, and that means honoring where the person is on their spiritual path, even if they don't think they have a spiritual path. Everybody has good qualities. Everybody has contributed something significantly. Everybody has been courageous. Everyone has been generous-hearted. And so I like to listen to a person's life and then reflect back to them their own greatness and let them use that as a stepping stone to keep going in that direction.
Sister Mary, if I can ask you to maybe take us through a meditation experience to wrap this.
I'm totally
Yes.
oblivious to the question.
Oh,
That's why I passed it.
oh, if you want me to repeat the question, I can. Yeah. The question was, if you could give someone a value to take away to maintain that dignity, what would it be?
A value to maintain their own dignity?
Yes.
There's a concept that the self is eternal. And even for an atheist, if something happens bad, they'll say, oh my God. No one says, oh my nothing. Think about it. Atheist gets a flat tire, they don't say, oh my nothing. Even the atheist will say, oh my God. So the existence of this being is always there. But even if you talk to people and they don't have a clear concept of God, they know that they exist. There is this thing called the I, or the Atman in some texts, or the Nafs in Arabic. It's the exact same thing. And even in the Bible, when God talked to Moses, what did Moses say God's name was? I am that I am. So this same I that created the universe is an aspect of everyone's personality, because that I, or the true self, is always there. And if you can get people to even practice a type of meditation, in the Bible it says, be still and know that I am God. And Prophet Muhammad has said, he who knows himself will know his Lord. So it all is pointing back to the concept of self. And there's a concept in Hinduism where they have a practice called neti neti. The yogis ask the question, who am I? And it's neti neti, not this and not that. You can say, oh, once you can figure out what you are not, you can figure out what you are, because the true self doesn't change. Like she says, I wasn't always a meditator, I wasn't always a senior citizen, but the I and the true self was always there. So I would try to point someone in that direction to see who am I and who is this true self. And it goes very deep, but I'll stop right there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we can all meditate on that true self, because it is very deep and personal, and deep meaning deep within the self. Om Shanti means I am a peaceful being, a peaceful soul, an eternal being. I'm invisible, but I'm real. I bring my attention within to my own inner space, which is a place of silence and stillness and peace. And as I'm experiencing this inner place, this very, very private inner place, I can be fairly certain that everyone around me is experiencing a very similar inner space. And as I reflect on the beautiful ideas and experiences that we heard reminded me of my own relationship with the Supreme. I can be quite certain that everyone around me has deep love and regard for and faith in supreme goodness. And as I hold the desire to be the best I can to serve God and humanity, to be kind, to be generous, I can be quite certain that in every soul in this gathering, that same desire burns brightly. This is our commonality. This is the level at which we can relate to each other. And this is that consciousness that makes it easy to connect with the God of our understanding. The goodness in me connects with the supreme goodness, becomes more good, and then shares that goodness with others. My goodness is my truth. And my relationship with the Supreme is the pathway to my highest truth. And service is the expression of my highest truth. I celebrate the truth within myself, the truth within each of my friends in this room, and the natural law that truth will eventually prevail, and everything else will fall away. Om Shanti.
Thank you all very much for sharing your thoughts. I think we have some tokens of appreciation to each of the panelists, and for the rest of us, a little treat as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversations, and I'm sure everyone here also did. There's just one more event